Getting it real with RealChunWai on the hottest topics, frank, engaging and candid. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Party Muda has plenty of goodwill, but the barely one-year-old party will face its greatest challenge in the impending general election. Joining us tonight is co-founder Lim Wei Jiat, who will share with us the party's plans for the coming polls. Please welcome
Good evening, Malaysia and followers from around the world. Tonight we have a special guest, Mr. Lim Wei Jiat, the co-founder and vice president of Party Muda. He's 31 years old, orang muda daripada Party Muda. Okay, right. He's a lawyer and a graduate from University of Malaya. He comes from Muar, Johor, but practices in Kuala Lumpur. And recently, he made his elections debut in Johor, his home state. So please welcome Jiet.
Hi everyone. I just like to mention that it may be named Party Muda, but there's no age cap and age limit. So anyone can join, including Chunwai. You're most welcome to join us if you want.
So basically, as long as my heart is Muda, right?
Yes, that's the point. Your jiwa, raga, dan emosi and mental muda.
Okay, now we will just go straight to the conversation, if you don't mind. Now, how has Party Muda geared itself for the impending general election?
Well, the main thing that we have done now is to apply to be part of Pakatan Harapan. I think the simple premise is we need a united progressive force to deny UMNO BN a victory, which is what we aim for. Now, there is, of course, calls for, why not we just contest on our own? But the reality is we are living in a first past the post system, which simply means it doesn't matter if you get 35% of the vote. If the next party gets 36%, they win, you get no seats. So the reality of the ground is that, opposition forces which are relatively weaker in terms of the machinery, in terms of, not being the incumbent, there is a need to unite. And that's what we are trying to do at the moment. But regardless of the application to join Pakatan Harapan, on our own, we have prepared, we have opened up, for example, open registration for any members to apply to become candidates in the elections if they want to. So they submit their CV and all the details. There's a committee that is already formed to select the candidates. We have our polling agents and counting agents ready. We are going to launch our manifesto in early October. So we are preparing, but we are a young party. We were just officially registered in December last year. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But we are moving and gearing towards any kind of a possibility.
So it would not be wrong to say that the party is not officially 1 year old, right?
Yeah, so technically we were only registered in December 2021 because the Ministry of Home Affairs and the Registrar of Societies were very difficult, to put it very mildly, in allowing our party to be registered. So there are a lot of up and downs in court. I was involved. It was very frustrating because at the end of the day, you want to reach out to the people and present good policy. You don't want to waste your time fighting the system just to get your party registered, which is what we have gone through for the past few months. But luckily that's over and we are focused now in the general elections to come.
As with all organizations, any form of organization, but more particular for political parties, the reality is that you need funding, you need organization, you need a structure. Membership itself is necessary. May not be too big, but the organization, the structure is really necessary to face any election. Is that an obstacle for Party Muda?
Yes, I think there are two major obstacles. Number one, because we are so young, there's not enough funding at this particular juncture. And elections are a very expensive business, as you know, Chunwai, for the printing of posters, to the clothes, to the banners, to the election deposits. So we will never outmatch or outgun Barisan Nasional's war chest, for example, but we still need to reach a certain threshold to equal the level playing field. So funding is one issue. The other issue really is the fact that most of our leaders are still in essence, having day jobs or part-time jobs are unable to focus 100% in the political runnings of the party. No, we are not PKR or UMNO, where their leaders are full-time politicians. They've been in the business for 10 years. They have an office with 3 to 4 staff permanently. So most of us are having our own day jobs, and it is a struggle, to balance and juggle. But, I suppose it takes time before we really establish ourselves. So those are really the two main things that I see. In terms of membership, so we do have around 80,000 members, but of course, the challenge is to mobilize the members, and the active members, they need to be mobilized, and there's a lot of logistical difficulties involved, but we learn along the way.
You mentioned Barisan Nasional, but the reality is that even the DAP and PKR has got very strong structure. They've been around for a while, especially DAP. And because the DAP is in control of a state in Penang and PKR is in control of a state in PKR, obviously that it has its strength. And most businessmen, if they are taking insurance policy, okay, when most businessmen, they will make donations not just to Barisan Nasional, but to states where the state government belongs to particular government, like in DAP or in PKR. The stats against Muda is that you would not be in a position to form a state government, or possibly may not even be in a state government. That itself would be a liability, I'm sure, right? In terms of people willing to put money for you.
Yeah, I suppose there are two kinds of people. There are one kind of people who want to put money in the hope that, you would be cooperative with them in the running of their business if you do form the government. But what we are appealing are to, not only businessmen, but ordinary members of the rakyat who want, a different kind of politics, who think that we have the vision to bring Malaysia into the next phase. I would implore those people to help and support us. It doesn't have to be financial contributions. It could be contribution in kind. It could be contribution of your time and effort. There are many university students, for example, they don't have deep pockets, but they're willing to spend their time to volunteer, most particularly in the floods last year, where, in fact, most of the people that we mobilize are not really Muda members, but well-meaning university graduates who just want to help people on the ground. And these are the kind of people that we are targeting. So at the end of the day, if you do see that there is hope, and they do see that, our crop of leaders are the ones you want to see in the halls of power, then do support us.
The Parti Muda has been quite successful in doing crowd funding, right, in the past.
Yeah, so for example, in the floods, we raised up to 2 million ringgit last year, and in the Johor elections, we also do crowdfunding. I think at the end of the day, we recognize that we are not as well connected as established parties, in particularly UMNO Barisan Nasional, where you get billions and billions. So we reach out to the rakyat, and the same way Bernie Sanders did it, he mobilized a lot of money through a grassroots kind of from the bottom-up campaign, the same that Obama did, the same that Macron did. So those are the kind of practices that we seek to emulate, and it also distances us from any kind of vote buying measures, because the danger of receiving, let's say, 5 million or 10 million for one particular tycoon is that you feel beholden to them. And any kind of public policy that you do, it has to be friendly or cater towards them. So we don't really want that to happen. And so we are democratizing the fundraising process and reaching out to as many people as possible.
The Parti Muda, it has been reported that it plans to contest in 15 parliamentary constituencies. But there'll be areas, we have not named the 15, but the perception is that there could be an overlapping. Some of the areas that Parti Muda would be strong in or looking at could be areas which are under the control of PKR or DAP, or it has been contested by DAP or either of this party. Would they lead to complications over this overlapping of areas?
I think there's some kind of confusion going on, because I was at the PC when the announcement was made. I think that when we said 15 seats, it is in the context of, okay, us entering into Pakatan Harapan, we are asking for 15 seats, and 15 seats are not Perikatan Nasional and Barisan Nasional controlled seats at the moment. So we are not touching even the incumbent seats of existing PHMPs. So I think that needs to be clarified. And a lot of people have been saying, oh, well, why are you so arrogant? You're asking for 15 seats. But at the end of the day, 15 seats is less than 10% of the 222 parliamentary constituencies. We are quite pragmatic and realistic. As a young party, there are limitations in how many seats we can contest. And therefore, I do think 15 is a reasonable kind of figure. But I hope to just emphasize that we are not clashing or seeking to clash with existing Pakatan Harapan seats, but merely, existing PNBN seats. And that is, within the context of joining Pakatan Harapan.
Out of these 15 seats that Muda is interested in, what states are they in?
Well, they're all around Malaysia, really. But those seats are, to be frank, not the easiest of seats, to be honest, because they are won by Bersatu or they have been won by Barisan Nasional. And we know that the sentiment going into GE15 is not as strong as GE14. So, it's going to be very challenging. But we are not arrogant or seeking to impose and saying that, oh, we're going to take this existing incumbent seat, regardless of what you feel or think. I think that there will be a negotiation process, of course, where, certain seats are exchanged or proposed to be distributed, and that process will take place. It can be quite acrimonious, but it will take place. But we are not entering into PH, with a very kind of confrontative attitude to say, I'm going to take this and, take it or leave it. We were not approaching PH in that manner.
Now, these seats, Parti Muda is seen as a urban focused, urban-centric party. Would you agree with this kind of assumption or assessment?
Well, I think that yes, our appeal lies with the urban and the young, but our experiences in Johor have also shown that we can have an appeal in a rural or semi-rural towns. So, for example, in the area I was contesting, which is Tenang, it is a semi-rural seat. There are 3 Felda settlements within Tenang in the Labis parliamentary constituencies. And most of the people staying there are of the older generation. The younger generation have mostly been in Singapore, working in Singapore. In fact, most of them didn't make the trip back because it's, some people say it's merely a state election. They may come back for a general election. So the voter turnout among the young was low. But nevertheless, within these constraints of an older demography and a rural constituency, we got number 2. It wasn't satisfactory. We were hoping to win, but we defeated Perikatan Nasional, we defeated Pejuang, we very narrowly lost to Barisan Nasional. So I think it was an eye-opener for us because it showed that, there is traction and people do recognize Parti Muda and are willing to vote for Parti Muda. So the perception that, oh, Muda only appeals to the Klang Valley folk may not necessarily hold true. And we have shown that people are willing to vote for Muda even in rural constituencies.
Can you share with us your experience campaigning in Tenang, these Felda areas, predominantly Malay area, probably much more used to UMNO and other Malay-based party. What was your, how did you react to your presence there?
I think they were mostly curious, what is Parti Muda, what do they stand for? They certainly like our t-shirts, they were asking but I think that the challenge has always been with Felda is that BN is very strong. There's a cradle to grave system. So they are there since you are born, they are supporting you through university, they're supporting you in the unfortunate event of a death. So to really take away that support or to convince the Felda voters to vote for you instead of them, you really need to show that you are much better policy-wise or you provide a much better vision for Malaysia, which is what somehow was achieved in G14 when that narrative was there. But beyond the Felda folk, what I learned from contesting in Tenang is that there is a sizable support for Muda, and we need to recognize that this is the first time Muda is entering into an election. Most of the people there don't even recognize the logo. Or I had to literally tell them, please vote for number 3 in the ballot paper. They do not know what Muda is. They may know Syed Saddiq, for example. And so there is a lot of education involved. And the fact that we won in Puteri Wangsa and did relatively well in others, we did not lose our deposits, says something. Even in Larkin, when there is fight against PH and PN and BN. So we did not even lose our deposit there. But I think that what I also learned is that there is a need to be united with other opposition parties, because in my area, for example, I had to rely a lot on our friends in DAP, Amana, and even PKR to get to know which area to go to, which constituency, which area where the voters are already predominantly UMNO and Barisan Nasional. You should perhaps focus somewhere else. So that is what I learned. But most importantly, finally, RealChunWai, is that political literacy is very low, in the sense that when I approach 18 and 19-year-olds, they don't even know they could vote. And if I approach a pakcik in his 40s and ask him to vote, he would say, oh, saya belum daftar undi lagi di pejabat pos. So they don't even know that there is already automatic voter registration. So there's a lot of lack of political awareness of how democracy works. And there really needs to have a kind of education on the part of the Election Commission and also the political parties to tell people that, hey, 18 and above, you can vote and you are already automatically registered. It's easy now. Just go to the voting station. It only takes 1 to 2 hours if you're lucky, and just get it done and done with. So that kind of awareness is still very low.
It's interesting you mentioned this point about the young voters. And of course, there's been a lot of hype, a lot of discussion over this new young voters that is coming on board. Now, from your experience at Ternang, do you think that the young electorate really make any impact at all, or even in the coming G15, would they make any real impact, given the fact that many not too sure whether they can vote, or are they interested in the issues that's been brought up?
I think that voter turnout for the youth is very low. I think that if you look at Johor, only 54% of total overall voters turn out to vote. And if you look at the statistics, it's roughly around only 14 to 15% of youths actually turn up to vote. And when I talk about youths, it means 30 and below. So the youths are, in essence, not motivated enough to go out to vote because they may not feel a political party represents their interests. They're not excited enough. Either that, or there's simply a lack of awareness that they can vote and they should vote. So I think that a lot of youth feel that politics is something very abstract and far from the realities that they go through in life. They don't really see a direct connection between going up for 3 to 4 hours on a particular day and having that change their lives. So I think that it is our responsibility as political parties to reach out to the youth, through social media and TikTok now, to tell them that, hey, your quality of education, the kind of works and jobs that you're going to get in the future, the kind of livelihoods and the kind of quality of family life that you want to have, it's all related to politics, and it's not something that you should ignore. I think that is terribly lacking, and I feel quite disappointed and sad of the very low voter turnout. I think that political parties need to look at themselves and tell them and ask ourselves what is wrong that people are not coming out to vote.
Obviously, that the young voters need to realize that politics is not just about voting once every 5 years or voting to elect an MP, that politics affect their life. I think that's the most important message that needs to be conveyed to them. So as a party that young people can relate to, what kind of political education does the Muda have?
I think that we are quite loud and active on social media, on Instagram and Twitter. And I think that TikTok is really, we believe, the new kind of battleground, where I think that the majority of youths are on this kind of fast-moving video platforms. And I think that Syed Saddiq himself has done a lot of videos. I think that the trick is to, well, not the trick, the idea is to try to not make it too serious, in the sense that, it need not be a heavy technical jargon-filled kind of video. It just has to be, a very, very easy to understand. Let's say public transportation, someone goes to the MRT and LRT, takes a video, tells about the ideas on how to improve. It could be as simple as that. I mean, I think reaching out to voters also means that politicians need to also reveal a little bit of their personal and family lives, which are not politically related. It could be videos of your cat or where you eat. And you try to make politics and politicians, more approachable to the young, and they don't see it as a very totally serious issue that I'm totally unable to comprehend. I need to let's wait another 10 more years before I finally understand politics. No, that shouldn't be the way. You should reach out to them and reach their level and try to bring them into the fold and tell them how important it is.
In fact, as somebody who does content, I look through most of the social media channels of politicians. One of the biggest mistakes that some of the older politicians do is that they only put up on their Facebook or on their Instagram, they put on the activity, the work that they do. They'll go and look at a what do you call it? They go and visit their constituents, or they do when they go out for constituency work, and it obviously turns off people, because that after a while it becomes a blind spot. People like to see, people like to see you playing with a cat, playing with the guitar, and
exactly.
people can relate to that. Or those older people might find this a bit frivolous, okay, but I mean, look, we are all consumers of content, and if you keep on showing me the same thing, I get very tired. I always say that this Najib Tun Razak has got a very strong social media team. Obviously, it's not him who does all that. He has a team, and I use the word he has a team because it seems to be still alive. Okay, so people like to see him, playing with his cat, doing his exercise, and when I look at what Syed Siddiq do, it is very interesting. Okay, he does it very well. Now, having mentioned Syed Siddiq, you say that when you go campaigning, people who identify with Syed Siddiq, is that a disadvantage too? Because the party is so strongly identified with him. Second liners like all y'all who are holding positions, but less people know about y'all. So what do you think Parti Muda could do to take away the fact that look, Syed Siddiq Parti Muda, Syed Siddiq Parti Muda, but there are others like you. So how do you get past that?
I think we do want to move past that. I think it's not very healthy for one political party to be identified with only a particular person. So I think that for example, in certain protests and PCs, I think Sadiq has taken the backseat and wants other political leaders to step up and to go up front. I think recently when we announced that we are having a protest this Saturday, Nyawa Dulu Baru PRU. So in other words, we are asking the government to delay the general elections because of the November floods. I think that particular PC, I was there, and Aini Hazika was there, and many of the leaders were there, and Sadiq was not there. So that was a conscious effort on our part to put to the front more leaders and for Sadiq to so he has his role, of course, and he's the president of the party. But yeah, we do feel that it's a necessity for us to push the second tier leaders up front, and we are trying to do our part. Of course, it's very difficult to keep up because he's an MP and he has a team. But we are trying to do our best in the limited resources that we have. But so it goes back to my earlier point. A lot of us still have our day jobs. I am still a lawyer. It's difficult to juggle and to carry on the same responsibility as Sadiq in pushing forth policies for the party.
Muda seems to have a very strong presence in Johor. Are you from Johor? Syed is from Johor, and you have a state seat in Johor. After Johor, what would you say personally would be the strongest state for Muda after Johor?
Well, I think, definitely the more developed states. I don't want to name names, but it's just that will be our traditional voter base, the urban and young crowd. And I think what needs to be said also is that, well, a lot of people say you don't have presence in the East Coast states, for example, but we need to understand that in Malaysia, a lot of people from the rural or the East Coast states are working and living in Kuala Lumpur and the Klang Valley. And as long as we reach out to them, and they will go back to their hometowns to vote. So it's not. So what I suppose I'm saying is that, yes, we need to work on having our presence on the ground in many other states like Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang. But that doesn't mean we don't have an influence, because they are living in places like Bangi and Shah Alam, and they are exposed to social media and they know about Parti Muda. So we do have our influence there in that regard.
How was the launching? I don't know whether the word launching is correct, or how is the Muda's presence in Sabah? because I look through the social media platform and I see a lot of wow, a lot of videos, a lot of news about Muda raising fund in Sabah, and I've got friends in Sabah telling me about wow, Muda making an impact in Sabah. Can you share with us your activity in Sabah?
Yeah, I think that stems from the fact that one of our very earliest co-founders, his name is Sharizal Denchi, and he is a modern farmer, and he does a lot of nice videos on Facebook on modern agricultural techniques. And I think it's very important moving forward because we're talking about food security, and that's one of the biggest challenges Malaysia is facing. So he is a very, very active figure, and he has built a team in Sabah, and they are very active on the ground. They are helping in terms of reaching out to the poor and the marginalized in certain areas they are focused on. So that we have a very strong team and presence in Sabah compared to many other states, and I think it's a good thing. And I do think we want to make an impact in Sabah. Of course, as you know, Sabah politics is there are a lot of parties there, and the nature of the politics
really complicated.
is something I myself don't truly comprehend today. But they are trying to maneuver and trying to carve out a space for themselves there. And I don't want to speak on behalf of them, but I think that there's a very interesting developments going on there. And I do think that the people of Sabah are noticing that hey, Muda is here. They are not totally alien party. They are on the ground helping people. So it's very exciting to see what comes next.
Wei Jiat, after almost 65 years of independence, okay, Malaysia continues to be dominated by the politics of race and religion. Even parties that claim to be multiracial cannot help the fact that they still talk about, oh, we champion this particular race, we are champion, of this particular race, we dare to speak up for this community, and you have a very dogmatic religious issue coming into play. As a party which talks about multiracialism, when you go out there to campaign and talk to the voters, you have all these strong parties that campaigns on race and religion around you. How do the electorates, especially the older ones, react to Muda?
I think it's very difficult to unravel the race and religious politics in Malaysia. But I think that moving forward, what we need to do is to show that, hey, these parties who claim to be champions of certain race and religion, look at their track record, look at the corruption and mismanagement and hypocrisy that's going on. They don't really, represent your interests. Look at the NEP and how they claim to be champions of the Malay race, but the wealth goes to the top. It never really trickles down to the bottom, and you are suffering because of the corruption and mismanagement. I can go on and on about LCS. Even in past, they talk about banning concerts here and there in the Klang Valley, but in the end of the day, in Kelantan, they allow concerts. So that kind of hypocrisy and double standards needs to be exposed, and we shouldn't be afraid to talk about race and religion. I think that a lot of people shy away from it or don't want to talk about it because it may inflame certain reactions. But I think that we need to have an honest conversation that, hey, these people who are purportedly your champions, they are not really your champions. And you need to vote politicians who can bring forth better policies and better vision for you, and not only harp on race and religion. Race and religion is important, to a lot of people. I recognize that. But that shouldn't be the sole decisive factor when you go to the polling booth. There are many other things that you need to look into. And when you look at Malaysia in the next 20 or 30 years, are these the people that you envision to lead and to provide a better life for your children? I think we all know the answer, and I think the answer is no. So I think that we need to try to educate people based on that. And I think that the younger generation may not be as obsessed with the idea of race and religion compared to the older generation. And we need to start there through education and through social media. It's a very difficult and tough journey. I remember when I was campaigning, it's unspoken, but race and religion comes into the picture, and people vote based on that. And I think that it may take another 1 or 2 more generations to completely depart from that, but we have to start somewhere, and we cannot go down the road of pandering to race and religion, because you will never outmaneuver the UMNOs and the past out there. You need to provide a different vision and to show that you are much better economically and in many other ways, and how we can bring Malaysia forward. I think that's the answer to the venom of racism and extreme religious narrative that we are seeing today.
I should be asking you the next question at the start of the conversation, but see, I forgot about it. But what made you decide to go into politics?
Well, I'm a lawyer for 6 or 7 years. I am involved in public interest litigation. I am involved in human rights work. So I sort of know the political landscape as an outsider. But I myself have never wanted to participate in frontline politics since day one. It's not my ambition at all. In fact, when G14 happened, I remember I told to my friends, wow, yay, I can focus on my commercial practice now. No need to worry about politics anymore. Malaysia is in relatively safe pair of hands for the next 5 years. But then Sheraton happened, and I was I was angry, but I was also very worried that people will be disillusioned and will lose faith in the electoral process, particularly the youths. And that is very dangerous, because that would mean an automatic win for Barisan Nasional and those incumbents who have their voter base, who will turn up to vote rain or shine. So it is the fence sitters who are disillusioned, which I feel, something new needs to come into the picture to jolt them up and give them hope. And Sadiq, I wasn't very close to Sadiq, but I knew what he was doing as a minister, and he wanted to form something. It wasn't called Muda at that point in time. There was even a point where he was debating on whether it should be merely just an NGO or a political party. So we had a discussion. Eventually, the idea of a political party, we think, is the best way moving forward. We need to have skin in the game. And, maybe it's a combination of idealism and a desire to do something at the moment and a dash of naivety that we decided to form Muda. And that's where I joined politics. I think looking back, there are a lot of challenges for the past 2 years, which I didn't foresaw in establishing a new political party, which hopefully I should have seen it early on. But, we learned along the way. There's so many challenges. We didn't have a party registered for so long, but we are here today. And I am just hoping that, Malaysians will give us a chance.
How did the two of you met?
I was a debater in university. So he was a varsity debater from IIUM. I was a varsity debater from University of Malaya. So, we meet hi and bye, but I wasn't really close to him. I think when he joined Bersatu before G14, I texted him a few policy pointers, which I think he should be focusing on. And we kept in touch when he was a minister, but it was only after the Sheraton move that we really got into touch, and it evolved until today.
So from the school days through University of Malaya, when you were studying law, you never had any intention of becoming a politician until Sheraton move?
No. In fact, I wanted to be a doctor at first. Then I saw the kind of social injustices that are going on. I felt that, well, as a lawyer, I could better remedy those. But, politics was something, I think growing up in a middle-class Chinese family, you are sort of, discouraged from joining. It seems like something, well, dirty, or, it won't provide a stable life for you. You might as well be a commercial lawyer. You are set for life. I think those kind of narratives still come into play. But I think that at the end of the day, you need to stand up for something. And when I just had a child recently, she's 2 years old. I think as a father, as you would know, it changes your perspective, and you want to do something. You want to just, inherit a better kind of nation for your child. However cringy that sounds when I say it, but that's really what we all want, right? Something better for our next generation.
So what was the reaction of your parents, your family, when you told them that, look, Lim Wei Jiat is going to politics, going to contest a state seat in Johor? What were the reactions?
I think in the beginning, my parents were a bit wary, and they were like, oh, maybe you should, focus. You have a family, you have a young family, your career is just starting off. Why decide to join now? Why not at 40 or 45? But I think that, sometimes the moment calls for you, and I think that it's very difficult to say no at certain junctures of your life. And I just, they were supportive. They were there. I think my wife and my mom-in-law, they all were also very supportive at home. But we will never know what happens in the future. So yeah.
And being in the opposition is always very tough. Look at what the succeeded had to gone through, and not just him, the other politicians. So it will always be a very, very rough game. They would rather hope that you join a golf club than to join a political party.
Yeah. I think that also from the private sector, it's very difficult for people in the private sector to join frontline politics, because there are certain people who would not want to engage you if you're in the opposition, for example. And that's why I think that initially we had a lot of startup founders, entrepreneurs who were really, really good in terms of the economy and finance. But, very, very sadly, when it comes to being frontline leaders, they decided not to, very understandably, because they have entire businesses and people that they are paying, they are on their payroll. And it's very hard for them to, mix the two. I just hope that in the Malaysia that we see in the future, people will not penalize businessmen or people in the private sector for joining politics, and it will just be part and parcel. In the US, you be Democrat or Republican, you go on with your life. You're not denied contracts. You're not hunted or pressured by government agencies just because you're in the opposition. So we need to have a mature kind of politics, and hopefully that comes to fruition one day.
I have one final question before we sign it off. This is where we're going to take the bet, okay? When do you think that the general election will be held? This year or next year?
I would say next year. If I lose the bet, I will have to buy you drinks, right?
Well, I mean that when we met a couple of weeks ago, I was very sure that it's going to be this year. But 2 weeks later, I'm really having second thoughts now.
Oh, really? Yeah.
It goes to show that how well, that the Prime Minister has been throwing a lot of these smoke bombs to confuse everybody. So I don't care. I'm just going to go ahead and plan my holidays for the next 2 months. I don't care anymore. Okay.
Yeah, I think that we need to move eventually to a fixed term parliament. I think that's what the UK is doing. They have a specific act to say that, well, within 5 years, then there's a general election, so that everyone can plan their lives. Businesses can plan their future accordingly, and everyone is not held by ransom by a single person, who holds all the cards. Yeah.
Okay, your message to Malaysians who are watching this program right now, what do you want to convey to them?
Well, Muda was set up to bring progressive new politics where new leaders come to the forefront. I do think Malaysia needs some kind of reset, and I do think that Muda can provide a very pivotal role in providing that reset. We are leveling up in terms of policy. We are leveling up in terms of our economic ideas. Give us a chance, and we will prove to you how capable we are. If we are not performing, vote us out after 5 years.
Thank you, Jiet, for joining us tonight, spending time to share with us your thoughts and to share with us some of the programs and the goals set up by the party ahead of GE15. And please continue to share with us and join us on our program. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
See you. Jiet, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, RealChunWai. Bye-bye.